What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about a Venom book. This collects Venom issue 16 through 25. A whole bunch of people worked on this book. You have Donny Cates, Iban Coelho, Mark Bagley, Juan Gedeon, Zay Carlos, Ryan Stegman, Andy Owens, J.P. Meyer, Jesus Abertov, Rain Barreto, Eric Arciniga, and Frank Martin. But also, there is a short story in the back that does not list any. These creators are not listed on the back. David Michelini, Ron Lim, and Clayton Cowles. And so I really like the first 12 issues of Venom. I talked about those probably about a year ago, and I really enjoyed what I read there. I had never read anything else from Donny Cates. I think I mentioned that he was a guy who just kind of came out of nowhere. I had never heard of him before his Venom run started, and then when he began that run, everyone was kind of losing their minds, and then I read that and I thought, oh yeah, this is pretty good. And I had never really read a lot of Venom before that. In fact, I don't think I had read any Venom, any solo Venom before that. I think the closest I ever came was a crossover with Cullen Bunn's X-Men Blue. But I read those two volumes that collected the first 12 issues and really enjoyed it. And then at the end of Volume 2, spoilers, Eddie Brock has been separated from his symbiote and he wants to live a life away from the symbiote. And then at the end of Volume 2, it says, up next, War of the Realms. And I thought, oh no, this is the worst possible time that you could have one of these giant crossover events like this. And I just want to say, I really hate these giant crossover events like this. I have said before that they happen way too often, and it feels like there's not enough time to actually feel the effects of these events. There's always the implied promise of nothing will ever be the same after this big event, but it's hard to believe that when a month later you have another big event, and I am not exaggerating. 1 month later, you had the War of the Realms storyline that happened in Venom issue 13, 14, and 15, and I would love to read those stories, but then when I look on Amazon, the trade paperback collecting those issues is more than $50, so I guess I'm not going to get to read those, but this book, I will give it credit, it does do a pretty good job of summing up what happened, because I was really curious, okay, Eddie's separated from the symbiote, how are you going to do a crossover with War of the Realms? How are you going to have Venom be part of this crossover? And here, Eddie mentions there was a wish stone that gave him symbiote-type powers, but he wasn't technically connected to the symbiote again, and so that explains the War of the Realms thing. And then you get one issue in this book, and then we jump right into issues tying in with another event called Absolute Carnage, another story that I have not read. And maybe I would have gotten Absolute Carnage and read it instead of getting this book if I had known that that was going to be pretty important in Donny Cates' Venom run. And I really wish, instead of doing Absolute Carnage as a big Marvel event on its own, that that story could have just been done in the Venom series. It really feels like it should have been. Apparently, the events of that, Cletus Cassidy / Carnage, I don't know if it's Cletus Cassidy himself or if it's his symbiote, I'm not sure, but is back and is somehow connected with the King in Black, who was introduced in the Venom run. And so it feels like this really should have been a Venom story told in the Venom series. And so we get several issues in a row where there is some big important stuff happening somewhere off screen, and then we're getting stuff that feels smaller and is connected to all of that stuff that we're not reading. And those issues are good and enjoyable. We get to see Norman Osborn's grandson hanging out with Eddie Brock's son. I liked their interactions. I thought that was fun. We get to see the Maker again. He was kind of introduced as a villain for Eddie Brock in Volume 2 of the paperbacks, and so I liked seeing all these characters interacting with each other, but I felt like I was missing out on the more important story because I hadn't read Absolute Carnage. So I really hate that we have all these big, huge events, and literally War of the Realms is barely wrapped up and Absolute Carnage is starting. I want there to be at least a year in between each event. More than that, preferably. I'd love for there to be like 3 years in between each event so that we can really feel like it's a big deal when one of these stories happens. Also, I already talked about how the War of the Realms Venom book is crazy expensive expensive. It is absolutely mind-blowingly idiotic that Marvel has a Venom movie about to come out, and some of the most well-received Venom stories are insanely out of print. After reading this volume, I said I would really like to go back and look at the Rick Remender Venom run, or what followed that was the Cullen Bunn Venom run, where Flash Thompson is a U.S. government agent, and he has the symbiote, and he's doing jobs and stuff. I want to read some of that. I can't, because those books are upwards of $200. Oh, if you want to put out a mortgage on your home, you can read those Venom stories, but otherwise, good luck finding any Venom comics. I'm surprised that this book wasn't out of print. I have no idea what Marvel is thinking there. Even if the Venom movie is done through Sony and you don't want to be feeding your rival company by putting these Venom stories out, you're still going to be making money if people buy the Rick Remender Venom run. I am so confused by that. So I was actually interested in digging into more Venom stuff from the past 10-15 years, but I guess I'm not going to do that. But anyway, once you get past all of the crossover stuff in this book, you have a pretty good Eddie Brock story. I really like the direction that Eddie Brock is going here. It feels believable to me that this guy, who was once a pretty bloodthirsty enemy of Spider-Man, is now as heroic as he is. It feels real to me, and that is no easy feat. You take a character like Venom, who terrorized Mary Jane, who killed who knows how many people, and I know in the 90s, once Venom became insanely popular, that they said, okay, he kills people, but only bad guys. Yeah, but he's still kind of a crazy monster, and he could very easily, you know, lose his cool and kill other people. So taking a character with that history and making me believe that he could go in this direction, I was impressed. I really liked that. And by the end, I feel like we are setting up another big crossover event. I know that the King in Black, that was its own event outside of the Venom run. Once again, I don't know why that could not have just been in this Venom series. You look back at the 1980s and you had the first appearance of Malekith the Accursed, and he opened up the cask of Unlimited Winter, or the cask of Endless Winter, or something like that, and it was a big deal. The entire Earth was suffering because of what Malekith did, but you didn't have a giant crossover event where every comic at Marvel, it's snowing, and we're seeing Thor show up in Spider-Man and Daredevil. You might have had an issue of X-Men where it's snowing, or an issue of Power Pack where it's snowing, or something like that, but the story of Malekith the Accursed opening this casket and Thor having to stop him, that was happening in the Thor series. You didn't have, let's do a brand new miniseries where Malekith does this thing and it's connected to the Thor run, but we're going to have the actual main story happen in a miniseries somewhere else, and then we're going to have, let's be honest, basically filler issues happening in the main Thor book. That's really frustrating to me. I don't know why Absolute Carnage and the King in Black miniseries, why both of those could not have just been in the Donny Cates Venom run. It's frustrating when I just want to read some Venom stories and I have to get a master's degree to figure out which story happens first and what I need to read before I read this. I just want to read Venom stuff. And you would think if you go volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and just read them in order, that everything would make sense. But no, it does not. So that is a little frustrating. Maybe someday I will be able to track down Absolute Carnage, and I know the King in Black thing just fairly recently wrapped up. So I will probably finish reading the Donny Cates Venom stuff. I am enjoying it. I just wish that it was all a little bit more streamlined and contained in this series. And I had the same problem like with Grant Morrison's Batman, where it was jumping all over the place. You had a couple of Batman volumes, then you have Batman R.I.P., and that connects to Final Crisis, and then you really probably should read Seven Soldiers if you want to understand Final Crisis, and then you got to go read the JLA run from the 90s, and then you have another Batman run that's happening simultaneously with this Batman run, and it gives me a headache. And I miss the days when Grant Morrison's Animal Man run, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, and that's it. I miss those days. So I'm ranting. I overall liked this. At times it did feel a little skippable because the main story is happening somewhere else, and that was, it got me a little upset, but overall I enjoyed this, and I still recommend reading Donny Cates' Venom run if you haven't already. And if you are even mildly interested, I would recommend go ahead and get your hands on this stuff now before it becomes $150 on Amazon. So that is all that I have to say about this book. I hope you guys like this review, and I will see see you guys in the future with some more videos. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.